This morning when I got up, I got on my bike like I do a lot of mornings when I don't run, or if I go out and run, I think about a lot of stuff too. But this morning I got on the bike and I was thinking about how it's pretty amazing that people are actually complaining about a camera that was, for me, like the perfect, like the camera of my dreams. Like it was the camera that I really wanted. And I wound up not getting it because it was a little out of my price range at the time when I absolutely needed to get a camera. And so I went with the Panasonic S5, which I'm in love with that camera. I'm so happy I made that move. But, you know, it's like, I know that a lot of Sony users are pissed off at Sony because the A7S3 and even the A1, you know, those cameras don't have a lot of the, you know, the capabilities of some of the newer cameras that are a lot less money. Like even the Zve E10, you know, the APS-C camera, but the, you know, the Sony Zve E1 has a lot of stuff that these content creators and filmmakers and, you know, people who do a vast array of things, they want in the cameras that they invested in already. And I can understand why they're upset, but what's interesting to me is that when the A7S3 came out, it was pretty much called the perfect camera by everybody, even Gerald Undone. Like everybody said that was the perfect camera, you know. It could see in the dark, it had, you know, 4K 120 without a crop, you know, it had everything, you know, everything that people wanted. And now suddenly, you know, amazing autofocus, obviously it's Sony. It can use catalyst browse, so you can get great stabilization. I mean, albeit in post-production, but still, you know, I've seen plenty of videos where the stabilization looks pretty good. I don't know. I do know that the stabilization I have on the Panasonic S5 is pretty amazing, but I digress. But anyway, I was just thinking about how technology guides us, you know, and technology moves us to a place where suddenly we're not happy with things that we have because we all of a sudden don't think they're as good as we thought they were before another piece of gear came out. Whether it be musical equipment or TVs or your car or, in this case, cameras. It's interesting to me that it's not only that these cameras don't have some of the new technology, it's that people literally think that they're not as good as what they were before they found out about the new gear. Like, you know, in February, you had the A7S3, you thought it was the greatest camera in the world. You would never think about another camera. It had everything you needed. It was like there was nothing stopping you from doing what you had to do, right? And then all of a sudden, the Zve E1 comes out, and it's got all this stuff that you've been kind of wanting for your camera. You know, shutter angle and, you know, better autofocus, stuff like that. But I mean, is that really stopping you from doing what you have to do to make your art, you know, to make your work? Like, I don't think so. But again, what I think is interesting is it's not just that you don't have the things that you want. I think people literally look at what they have as not as good anymore. Like, man, this ain't even any good. And it's like it's the exact same camera. You know, professional photographers and filmmakers, a lot of people working in the industry doing real stuff like shooting for the NBA or doing commercials or feature films. I mean, I know a lot of photographers, like professional photographers, who've had cameras for years that have no autofocus, no stabilization, you know, don't shoot in 4K, like don't have a lot of stuff that people absolutely require now. And they would never change their camera because they love it, because they've made so much incredible work with it over the years. So, I don't know. I just find that interesting. You know, it's like, it reminds me of if you buy a TV, right? Let's say you go out and buy a smart TV, you know, an LG or a, you know, a Samsung or something like that, right? And all of a sudden, you know, and you think it's this amazing TV, it's 4K, it's got, you know, it's got everything you want, you know, the colors are perfect. And then they come out with a TV that's better, you know? And all of a sudden, you don't think your TV is any good anymore. And you want the new TV. And you're pissed that, you know, Samsung or LG is not sending you a firmware update or something like that to make your TV as good as the one that just came out. I mean, it's crazy. Why should a company do that, you know? Or it's like a computer, you know, let's say you buy a Mac, let's say you buy the M1 or an M2, you know? And it's just incredible, and it runs DaVinci Resolve like it could run an airport, you know. It's incredibly powerful. It's spec'd out. You've spent, you know, $4,000, $6,000, $12,000 on your computer, right? Let's say you bought a Mac. And all of a sudden, 6 months later, Mac comes out with the M3 or something else that does something that you didn't even think about before. But it does this thing that you can't do now. And you're like pissed because you don't have that computer, you know? And I do understand that sometimes software grows with the hardware. So maybe now DaVinci Resolve is going to add things to its software that can only work with the new technology. You know, maybe that's the case. I doubt it, but maybe that's the case. You know, and like if you have a PC, you know, with a PC it's a little bit different because you can upgrade it. You can add more RAM, you can get a better graphics card, you can get a different motherboard, you can get a better processor, like, but you know, you might as well get a new computer. Because, you know, if you get the best graphics card, you're going to spend $1,500 to $2,000, right? I mean, RAM is not that expensive, but if you get a new processor, I mean, it adds up. You know, 400 here, 300 here, 1,800 here, and suddenly you spent $2,500. You might as well buy a new computer, or maybe you should get a Mac, you know? But I mean, you shouldn't expect that after you spend money on your computer, that the company is now owing you every update for the rest of time with every new computer that they come out with. That's not the way it works, you know? Same thing with phones, you know? You buy a phone, you have the iPhone 12, or you have the Samsung S20 or whatever, and then they come out with the S21 or the S22, you know, they come out with the iPhone 14, and suddenly you think like, yo, I bought this, now you should upgrade, you know, give me some firmware upgrades so mine can be as capable as the new one, or send me the new one. Why? It doesn't work that way. I mean, I'm actually a perfect example. You know, when I was looking for a camera, I'm working on a film right now, and I needed a new camera. And I wanted to get the FX3 or the A7S3. But they were just a little bit too much money for me because I didn't have any full-frame lenses. Or I actually have 2 full-frame lenses, but they're vintage lenses, old Minolta lenses. And I wanted at least one decent autofocus lens. And so I was like, if I get one of those cameras, they're really going to cost me like $5,500, right? And then if I get the XLR handle, I mean, it's going to cost me $6,000. So I wound up getting the Panasonic S5, and trust me, I am incredibly happy with this camera. But literally, less than a month after I bought my camera, they came out with the S5 Mark II. And, you know, I'll admit it, for a minute I was like, damn, like, I just bought this brand new. I didn't buy it used. I bought it brand new. So for a minute, I felt a little dogged, you know, like, you know, Panasonic should do something. But then when I came to my senses, I was like, why? You know, like, go sell the camera. If I was really upset, just sell it, take a loss, and buy the Mark II. But when I really thought about it, I was like, I bought this camera because it literally gave me everything that I was looking for in a camera. Like, everything, you know, that I knew that I could afford, you know. And actually, the one thing that I was a little worried about was I was looking for a camera that was like a beast in low light. And that is really the sole reason that I wanted to get the FX3 or the A7S3, because I wanted that 12,800 dual native ISO, because that's ridiculous, you know. So this camera, the dual native ISO, goes up to 4,000. And I do struggle a little bit, like, you know, I have an f1.4 lens, my Minolta Rokkor, and at ISO 4000, it can do pretty well in pretty much any dark situation. But I can't even imagine having 12,800, a clean image at night or in the dark with pretty much, you know, then you could use pretty much any lens, you know, like you could get a f2.8, you could shoot at f4, f5.6, f8. If your ISO is 12,800, like pretty much like you're shooting in the daytime, you can be really equally as creative and not have to worry about a blurred out background if you don't want it, you know? You can really deal with depth of field the same way at night that you do during the day. So I say all that to say, I love the camera that I have. You know, I love this Panasonic S5. First of all, I've learned so much from it because it has so much more packed into it than the camera I was using before. I mean, I was using a Sony A6400, and when I first got it, to me, it was the perfect camera. Like I fell in love with that camera, and I really learned how to use a proper camera on that camera. But I kind of maxed out. I didn't want to work APS-C anymore because low light was really important to me, and I wanted some kind of stabilization because I find that I don't really like using a gimbal. You know, if I really, really need it, I mean, I have a Weebill S, and if I really, really need it, I'll break it out. But I wanted a camera that had better stabilization because I like that handheld look. So I was deciding between the Panasonic GH6 or the S5, and I decided to go with full frame, and it was cheaper, and I had full frame lenses. So if I bought the GH6, I was going to have to go buy micro four thirds lenses. And I said, if I really want to invest in a ecosystem right now, I want to invest in a full frame system, because I could also use APS-C lenses if I want to with this, because it's got APS-C mode, you know. I mean, actually, the anamorphic mode in this camera kind of works better in APS-C mode. You know, it's more convenient, you know. So I made a good choice, but I will say that, let's say after I finish this film, you know, like I said, I'm shooting a lot of stuff in low light, and I'm struggling with it sometimes because, you know, I really have to make adjustments, and I don't have tons of lighting. I really have to make a lot of adjustments to make sure I get a clean image. So I might very well, in my future, see myself getting an FX3, for example, or an A7S3, simply because of that low light capability and feeling like I'm not really losing anything else. I mean, I am losing the de-squeeze capability that I have in my Panasonic S5. And who knows, you know, maybe by that time they will do a firmware update, or maybe they'll come out with another camera that's full, because now I'm kind of stuck in full frame. Like, I just like the way it looks. And I think that I'll probably stay full frame, although who knows, you know. But I don't see myself moving to the FX30 because there's no advantage for me. You know, the only reason that I would upgrade would be for a higher dual native ISO. So anyway, I'm going to end this video and just say that that's what I was thinking of when I was riding the bike this morning, that, you know, it's interesting how we get something, we're really excited about it, we do crazy amounts of research, we watch all these YouTube videos, we read articles, we do everything, you know, we might even rent stuff, and then we finally buy this shiny new piece of equipment, this camera, these lenses, and we love it and we think it's perfect, exactly what we wanted, and then 6 months or a year later or something like that, somebody else comes out with something that is just a little bit better, like it raises the bar just a little bit, not even that much. It just does a few things that you can't do, and now you're pissed off. And suddenly, like psychologically, you don't feel like you have the best anymore, and that's the problem. I think we're focused too much on having the best instead of making the best. You see what I'm saying? Like, as you know, everybody says all the time, it ain't about the gear. Now, I personally think it's important to have good gear, you know, that doesn't make you feel like you're constantly having to work around things. Like, you want to have something that you feel is supporting your creative work, you know, your creative process. But also, you can't lose sight of the fact that these tools that we have are nothing in comparison to this and this, our heart and our minds. Like, that's where the creativity comes from, our desire to share stories, to contribute, you know, to have an experience and give something to society and to people and to audiences, and, you know, make art, you know, change, you know, like elevate us, you know, inspire people. That's really what's important. And, you know, like everybody always says, you could do that with anything. So I'm not saying don't get the best, you know. Get the best that you can afford, that, you know, serves all of your needs, you know, and that's what I try to do. And so, yeah, like I said, I might see myself upgrading in the future. I'm not sure, because I can kind of cure my problem with better lenses too. So it'll be kind of like, you know, I really have to work that out. Like, can I get the lenses that'll support what I want to do? You know, will it be roughly the same as a 12,800 dual ISO? I don't know about that. You know, I mean, there are some really blazing fast cine lenses, you know, so that remains to be seen. But for now, I'm good, you know, I'm fine. And I might very well just want to invest more in lighting. But see, I shoot a lot in natural light, you know, especially if I'm doing a documentary or something like that, I'm running and gunning, I'm not carrying lights around with me. So that, you know, that's an amazing gift to have, that dual native ISO that is like through the roof. That's something that I think a lot of people take that for granted. You know, like if you got an FX3 or an A7S3 and you have that, like, man, you got something very special and a huge advantage to what most people have. So anyway, I'm very happy with the Panasonic S5. And you know, I don't want to say that I think it's bad to want to have all of the assets that every camera has. I think that's, you know, natural. You know, everybody wants that, you know. And if you can afford it, then just upgrade to what's better, you know. Don't be mad. I mean, that's business. You know, think about if you were the company, you wouldn't, you know, sell something to somebody. It's like running shoes. I'm a runner, right? Like when I buy a pair of running shoes, if they only last me 6 months because it's in summer and it's hot and I'm running a lot of miles and I'm doing a lot of track work, and you know, my running shoes, you know, wear out in 4 to 6 months, maybe even less, you know, I'm not expecting the company to like resole my shoes or send me a new pair of shoes. I got to buy another pair of running shoes, you know. Or, you know, if I'm wearing a pair of, you know, say Hokas or Sauconys or, you know, Nikes or whatever, and another company comes out with something that seems much better, you know, like suddenly my running shoes aren't going to feel like crappy running shoes. Like, it's my body, you know, it's my work ethic, it's my enjoyment of running, you know, it's not the shoes. So now I'm going on and on with crazy metaphors, and I'm going to stop now, but I think you get my point. I think we should all appreciate what we have, and I really look forward to continuing to watch all of the amazing art that I see on YouTube from people. You know, I mean, I think all these YouTubers, these filmmakers have turned tutorial, you know, type work into art. You know, some of it's so beautiful to watch and it's so informative, and I really appreciate it. So I hope everybody appreciates what they have, and yeah, onward we go. Let's keep it moving. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back with part 3 of my father's film development story, because it's just like, it's crazy. Like, you can't believe what I'm going through, but I'm not going to get into it now, so I'll see you around.